Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. You look like a monkey, and you fucking smell like one too. Happy birthday, dear listener. I know at least one of you out there has a birthday today, but even if you don't, you definitely have a birthday, otherwise you wouldn't exist. And we're going to get all deep in the guts of birthday stats today, but first let me welcome you to the 12th edition of the Tiny Tennis. We've been doing this a year now. I'm your host, Nick Emel. The Tiny Tennis is a monthly short-form podcast where I cover a top 10-ish list in about 10-ish minutes or less. For long-form episodes where me and a guest go more in-depth on a top 10 list, check out our main weekly series right here in this same podcast feed where we drop new episodes every single week. Now let's get to that big old birthday cake sitting in the middle of the room, because those candles ain't going to blow themselves out, am I right? Today we're talking about the months of the year with the most birthdays in it. But first I thought I'd share some interesting tidbits about birthdays, and to do that, I think the best place to start is the womb of a woman. After all, that's where babies are typically grown before they are violently torn from their mothers on their birthday. It's said that around 140 million babies are born each year worldwide. That's a lot of babies, which comes out to more than 4 births every second, and more than half of those births occur just in Asia. Speaking about the United States, though, the number of births in 2023 was about 3.6 million, which is actually a 2% decrease from the year before. The fertility rate in the U.S. in 2023 was a little over 54 births for every 1,000 women. That's women between the ages of 15 and 44, which is actually 3% down as well. Some factors that may be contributing to the decline in birth rates in the U.S. include longer life expectancies, financial concerns, and an increased focus on careers, and people that like to sleep. Because that changes when you got a baby, take it from me. Meanwhile, according to the CDC, about 61 million people died in 2023. So again, 2023, 140 million births compared to 61 million deaths. So there are more than double the amount of new babies than there are deaths in a given year. And in the United States specifically, there are about 6 deaths for every 1,000 births. So despite birth rates being down in the U.S. slightly from years before, we're still doing okay. 6 deaths for every 1,000 births. Now, some studies show that people are more likely to die on their birthdays. I did not realize that. Explanations for that include excessive drinking, suicide, or cardiovascular events due to high stress or even happiness on the birthday. So all that shit contributes to people actually being more likely to die on your birthday than otherwise. I want to talk about the birthday paradox too, which is to say there's equations out there that show in a random group of 23 people, there is about a 50% chance that 2 people will share a birthday. Not a birthday month, but a birthday. Any more than 23 people, and it gets increasingly likely that a pair of matching birthdays exists. Just thought that was interesting. And as we'll see on the list today, the most popular birthdays of the year are all in September, like literally all in September, which means these babies were conceived around the holiday season of the prior year. Why the holidays? Well, we got the mistletoe, of course, but there's also more holiday cheer in the air, and it could have something to do with the fact that many people have more free time on the vacation days they take around Christmas and New Year's. There's also the general sense of romance around the holidays. Oh, baby. And December is the most popular month to get engaged. So a lot of people might be celebrating their engagement or just celebrating the holidays in general, which means 9 months later, give or take, you got babies in September. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It appears more babies are conceived during the winter months, which makes sense when you live in a cold Midwestern state, for example, where there's not a lot to do in January when it's freezing and dark at 5 o'clock. Well, you could fuck. That's what people are doing. Positive and negative associations with culturally significant dates may influence birth rates. There's a study that shows a 5% decrease in spontaneous births and a 17% decrease in cesarean births on Halloween compared to the week before and after, which means people, when they can help it, they try to avoid having their child be born on October 31st. And when looking at a graph, you can clearly see a correlation. The later in the year, the more birthdays. So that's kind of a spoiler. Let's get to the list itself. This data comes from birth data from the CDC and the Social Security Administration. We're looking specifically at U.S. birthdays, but I did look, and it is a general trend. The trends we see in the U.S. are what we also see in most of the rest of the world as well. So I also pulled some data from USA Today, unitypoint.org, Reddit, and Wikipedia. Here we go. I'm going to do all 12 months, starting at number 12 being the month with the least number of birthdays in the United States. Number 12 is February, Not surprising if for no other reason than February has the fewest number of available birthdays in a month, because there's only 28 days typically. Although leap year, which comes every 4 years, there's February 29th, and that is the least common birthday in the world. Number 11, the second least common birth month is April. Number 10 is an outlier because usually later in the year you have more birthdays, but November, which is also the month this Tiny Tennis episode comes out, November is the third least likely month that you would be born in. Number 9 is January. 8 is June. 7 is March. Now we're at the halfway point. Number 6, the sixth most common and the sixth least common birth month is December. Number 5 is May. 4 is October. 3 is September. And September, we're going to get to this in a minute, but September actually has 9 of the top 10 most common birthdays of the year, as in September 9th, September 10th, etc. But since there are only 30 days in September compared to the next 2 months on our list, it falls to number 3. It brings me to number 2, which is July, where our well-bootied friend Dr. Buster, his birthday's in July. And August is number 1. The most births per month on average in the U.S. and most of the rest of the world is August. For an August birth month, you would have been conceived sometime around the November-ish time frame of the prior year. So maybe your dad, after he stuffed the turkey, he stuffed your mom. Seems like a reasonable conclusion to come to based on the data. And I do mean to come to. And I also thought it was interesting that in the top 7, other than September, which is number 3, every other month has 31 days in it, which means there's just more days that you could be born in, which could have something to do with it too. So going back quickly, at the bottom of the list is February, April, November, January, June, March, December, May, October. Top 3 most common months, September, July, and August. So now I'm going to talk about the most and least common days of the year, not the month. The least common days to be born. There's a trend here. Number 5 is January 2nd. Number 4 is July 4th. Number 3 is December 24th. Number 2 is January 1st. And number 1, December 25th. This is excluding leap day, February 29th, because I just didn't think that was fair. So this is out of the 365 days of the year. December 25th is the least common birthday. And according to a paper from the National Bureau of Economic Research, there are 18% less births on the day of and just after a holiday. Around half of that decline is attributed to fewer C-sections scheduled on holidays, so when people can help it, they avoid a holiday birth date. I did look at a few celebrities that were born on December 25th. We got Jeremy Strong, who played Kendall in Succession. We got the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, and listener of the show, Jimmy Buffett. Now let's talk about the most common days of the year that births happen. In the top 10 most common birth dates, only 1 is not in the month of September. It's actually number 6, which is July 7th. Number 5 is September 10th. Number 4 is September 17th. The third most common birthday of the year is September 12th. And then September 19th. And number 1, the most common birth date of the entire calendar year, September 9th. Some celebrities born on September 9th. Adam Sandler, Hugh Grant, Michelle Williams, Michael Bublé, and yours truly. Not born on September 9th, but very close. Listener, I want you to consider this episode my birthday gift to you. Whether your birthday is today or some other day in September, after all, we all know it's in September, statistically speaking. I want you to remember that, oh yeah, Nick gifted me this Tiny Tennis episode. Thank you, Nick, and you're welcome, listener. Happy birthday. And as a birthday gift for me, I'd love to know how you like today's episode. I hope you'll take 30 seconds to rate and review Tennis Podcast on your podcast app, whether that's Spotify or Apple or Good Pods. There's a spot to rate and review us. I hope you'll do that. And I sincerely appreciate your feedback and support. I want you to know that I'll be back with a new Tiny Tennis next month, but you can get it a few days early with no ads if you go to tennispod.com/plus and start a free 7-day trial. As a Tennis Pod Plus member, you get Tiny Tennis and all Tennis Podcast episodes early with no ads. And until next time, thank you again for listening, and I'll see your tiny ass on the next Tiny Tennis.